make the strings.
Driveshaft Customs. What's up, guys? Welcome back to part 6 of the 2JZ Mustang build. And I don't have really a direction of this video yet because we're waiting on some parts and stuff to show up. I have a lot of stuff that's kind of piled up over here. Basically in here, this is a factory Mustang GT radiator. I have solid rear subframe bushings, solid diff bushings, some control arm bushings, some suspension arms. What else do I got? And if you come over here, we have some tape. So first thing I need to do is this friction tape, it's basically kind of like a fabric. And it's really soft. So it's similar to what the OEM used on this thing. So I went ahead and wrapped it in this stuff, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it in that, get this harness all ready to go. The other thing that I wanna do, in the last video I talked about how I wanted to move the crank position sensor from that subframe down there and actually make a bracket. So hopefully by the time this video, by the end of this video, we have that figured out, or at least the other parts showing up will allow me to kind of move forward. Clutch discs, I had them overnighted and they should be at my house hopefully soon, and I could go pick them up because as soon as we do that, we could yank the transmission out, throw the new clutch discs in it, and then basically button up everything. So I also do need to make a transmission mount. So a couple things on the agenda. We also have a full fuel system stuff to install, but we're waiting on the top hat from Deatschwerks. So lots and lots of things, lots of variables. So I'm pretty much just gonna start doing some stuff and I guess see where we get. And got these clutch discs, or these, what do you think?
Those frisbees? Here, let me see one.
Frisbees, they're expensive frisbees is what they are. But, so on the clutch, they actually don't look like they have that much more material on them than the other discs. But, so the ones that are actually in there have these like little cracks going down the thing. Do you think that would be alright? I mean, I don't really want to pull the tranny out.
Probably not.
You don't think it'd be alright?
No. There's cracks?
Yeah, they're like cracked, like right in between.
I wonder
you just
why.
go like that. Maybe just all the clutch kicks and solid engine mounts and solid everything and solid diff.
It almost looks like it's like brass.
Yeah, it doesn't look.
I wonder why they make it out of brass. Oh, maybe the whole thing's brass. Because these are brass.
Maybe. I don't know what that is. But so anyhow, Dave is over here and we're going to go ahead and pull the engine back out of it. I hope I don't have to do any stuff to the turbo manifold. Basically, I'm just going to try and loosen all the engine bolts and disconnect the wiring out of here, and then just throw it up in the air and get the transmission out of it so we can do it on the ground. I don't think it'd be fun at all to try and pull the actual tranny in the car. You can't really get to the top bolts or anything. So if we ever do have to do like a service at a track or something, or like on the journey, like that's just not going to be a good time. This is one of the discs that came out of here. If you guys could see. See if this guy will focus right there. Tiny itty bitty crack right there. And then I think this one might even be a little bit worse. So you could see
6 cracks in this.
Crack, not cracked. So it would have been fine.
Oh yeah.
I think.
It looked like, yeah, it barely looks worn. Look at that. I mean, we'd have to measure them, but I mean, look at that.
I mean, they almost look the same.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
These are glazed.
A little glazy. But either way, let's get new clutch discs, and we're throwing it back together, putting it back in the car.
New clutch discs.
New clutch.
Spotted.
What? That's fine.
Right.
It'll be alright. A new clutch was like $800.
I mean, you got those resurfaced.
Or you just stick them back in.
Good. Yeah.
It didn't slip, so.
I
mean, honestly, I wasn't even gonna look at it, and then I decided to look at it, and I seen those cracks, and I was like, well, we'll just throw new discs in it. So that's what we're doing. So the engine is all assembled and ready to go back in, and I decided to be patient and wait just one more one sleep, okay, until another part came in, because now we are actually going to go ahead and install a full Deatschwerks fuel system on this thing. As you can see right now, 100% stock 440cc injectors, stock fuel rail, regulator, all this map sensor stuff out of there. With converting over to the ECU master, we're basically going to delete a lot of that stuff out of the way. So right here I have a fuel rail. We have some we got some 1000cc injectors. We got the fuel filter, and then we have the regulator, a bunch of lines and fittings. And basically one of the issues with this car is actually factory. It is a returnless style fuel system. And so what the ECU does is send kind of like a pulse width modulated signal to the fuel pump to turn it kind of off and on, or like vary it to match the demanded fuel pressure. So Deatschwerks has came out with a kit, and there's only 3 in the world right now, and I have one of them.
It's in this box.
It's in this box right here.
Never before
and
been seen.
No, it's actually been seen. We've actually filmed the same exact thing
You guys have
before.
already seen it on the channel.
You guys have already seen it on the channel. So all right, Ty, pull it out.
You ready for this?
Pull it out.
I feel like
Ooh. So this
There
is
it is.
actually the one from SEMA and PRI. So this is their X2 dual pump module. So in the tank, in the factory style thing down here, it has twin Deatschwerks 400 LPH pumps, which are insane. They actually flow like 500 LPH.
it's like their
Or they're-
brushless ones. The brushless.
No, this
now?
isn't.
Oh,
These aren't the brushless ones, but yeah. So basically, what you do is you end up wiring it up with a relay. You could stage in the pumps like we have on the Supra, to where like if you're just cruising around, you're just only running one pump, and as soon as you hit like 1 pound to boost, it kicks on the second pump. So it has a 10 an feed and a 6 an return
I thought it
on
was
it.
an 8.
No, we have a conversion. So
Oh, okay.
so we're basically going to run 8 an lines from the tank to the fuel rail, and then we're going to do a 6 an return off the regulator. It's a 1,000 horsepower capable regulator, which means it'll kind of bypass 1,000 horse worth of fuel. So when the car's just idling, you're not just like overloading a fuel pressure regulator and making tons of fuel pressure. So I'm super excited about this. I really appreciate Deatschwerks for actually sending this out, and it literally drops right in. So that's one of the downfalls about this Mustang chassis, is actually having doing a basically a returnless fuel system, especially getting multiple pumps to kind of hang in the tank in a decent configuration. One of the things that I was going to do just to make it work is I ordered a super cheap fitting. This is basically a bulkhead 6 an fitting, and was just going to drill a hole in the top of it and return it that way. But Deatschwerks hooked it up, and I'm really excited about that. So if you guys could head over to Deatschwerks' Instagram and tell them thank you for sending out this whole module, because like literally the marketing lady had to go and like pry it from the tech guys in the back and say, hey, we need this, we need to send this to Trevor, and I really appreciate that. So we're gonna go ahead and throw that stuff on the engine as far as all the fuel system stuff, and then we also have the thing for the front of the engine that changes this basically smooth pulley to a ribbed pulley, so the belt will actually run around it right there, and then I could actually make my bracket for the crank position sensor. I know that was like, I think every other comment in the last video, other than that, to get the remote start to work, the latch had to be down and the check engine light. So it's just funny like how many of those comments, but I really appreciate you guys, commenting on the videos and telling me that I'm stupid. But in that video, I basically already said that I was for trying to mount it on the subframe instead of the engine. So it's getting mounted on the engine. We're getting a fuel system. Planning on going to the dyno on Monday. So let's get started. Kind of trying to plumb up some things right now and get an idea for where we're gonna lay out obviously it's easy. We got 8 this side, 8 this side, and so we'll have the feed coming up from here. We'll have an 8 line going to a fuel filter, and then out of the tank, which comes from this 10 this converts it to an 8 right there. So all PTFE stuff. So we'll basically leave here, 8 fuel filter to the rail, come off of the rail straight to the regulator with an 8 in on that. We have a fuel pressure gauge on the front of it, so we'll be able to dial in our pressure. 6 output straight back to the 6 return on the top of the tank. So that's pretty much what we're working with. The injectors fit in there nice and pretty. So pretty much ready to go. Got all these fittings right here. We have lines, we have fuel filter, and some other little things. But man, what an improvement over those. So the stock are about 440 cc's. Technically, on like pump gas, on a 6-cylinder, you could kind of average the cc to horsepower. So maxing these things out, I would probably only be able to make about 440 horsepower with it. Whereas now we're got 1,000 cc's in there. Could technically make 1,000 on pump if we weren't scared. But pump, making 1,000 on pump on one of these things, that's probably not gonna happen. So should be able to probably make I'd say 6.
This little guy won't go that high.
6 something on E85 if I wanted. So this turbo, this is a Gen 2 Garrett 3076 with an 82 AR exhaust housing. Guess how many it maxes out? Guess.
750.
Yeah.
Yeah.
750 for
On
a
a
tiny,
18
literally
probably
full boost at 3,000 RPM. So we're at 16, 17 pounds at 3,000 RPMs on pump gas on a stock ECU with whatever silly timing they have in there. And we're getting ready to put the ECU master on it. Had the ECU master on it, but we're gonna take it to the dyno and freaking turn it up. So this thing's gonna rip. And look at that manifold. So this is that $100 manifold. What do you think? Was that a good investment?
I mean, 5 years or so.
5 years. So it's been about 4 years, but it's one of those things.
How much was the manifold on? How much was
on
the
the
Supra?
Supra? I think they're about 1,000, yeah. But then, so when you do like an aftermarket manifold, like a spaghetti manifold, it's really hard to run like the return line without it like encountering anything. So you can see right here, it's literally just comes straight out. So the return line that goes to the pan literally just goes straight down, and we don't have to worry about any issues with heat or it touching the manifold or it going through the manifold. So it kind of simplifies the whole process. So for right now, I'm waiting on some injector clips to show up to actually wire this into the stock harness. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I got the pulley kit that showed up. So I'm going to go ahead and swap this pulley and then actually weld the bracket once I have the belt on here, so that our crank position sensor is actually mounted on the engine and we don't have to worry about this thing flexing or moving or doing anything crazy. Then we'll throw it back in the car, and then tomorrow I should have the injector clips all wired up and get it fired up, and by then it's probably going to be ready to take it for a drive because I'm going to plumb it today too.
Intercooler and radiator, right? And that's it.
Intercooler, radiator, and the rest of the fuel system. Well, we gotta make a bunch of lines too.
After fuel.
I'm excited to make some lines.
Ugh.
Got this little pulley on here. Just had to clearance the back just because it's a smaller diameter pulley and it goes a little bit deeper. But this one actually matches that, and it's nice to have a nice new bearing, brand new belt, all that type of stuff. So all we're running is the alternator water pump, and basically this tensioner is all we need. So deleted the AC, deleted the power steering, obviously because we have electronic assisted power steering. The whole rack in the Mustang is electronic. So now this is why I waited to actually mount this sensor right here, is because to see where all this stuff lines up. So right now I think we're looking pretty good to pretty much just stick it right there and weld it and just call it good. I mean, I could go down a little bit, something like that. I mean, that might be good. But the other thing that we do have to consider is the sway bar. The sway bar is right here. So we got custom little bracket, painted everything nice and black, and it's ready to go. I have basically a bolt on the back side with this thing is threaded, and then a nut on this side so we can adjust it a little bit, and then if we ever need to adjust it, we can kind of space it out or hog out some holes and play with some stuff. But it feels super solid right now, so I think that's a lot better than it actually being on the subframe. Next thing that we need to do is, Ty's already getting started on it, is he's yanking out the factory fuel line right there. So the factory fuel line it's basically steel all the way, or metal. It looks a little wiggly. All right, so we're hopping in the car, and we are going to remove this factory thing right here. Except for there's no power, and the seat is kind of in the way. Yeah, so basically just pull off this clip. X2 dual pump module. So this is basically a kind of a siphon from the other side of the tank, just because the way the car is, there's basically a big fuel tank on this side and a big fuel tank on this side, and it's just so it sucks that fuel from the other side. So that's where that comes in. You can see right here we have these push lock fittings. Right now we have AN fittings, and there's no place for a return on here, so that's why I could have just drilled a hole and did a return. That's no fun. I guess these stock fuel pumps, they do all right, but pretty much anybody who makes power with these things, they just throw in the DW400s, and this whole fuel system right here should be good enough for well over 1,000 horse. So I think a lot of people are making closer to 700 or 800 on just a single DW400. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this guy in. Easiest way to add 1,000 horsepower fuel system to your car ever. All right, so didn't really film any of that, but you can see we got it all figured out. Had to modify the floor just a little bit. Basically what I did is I laid a crescent wrench across here, used a pry bar, kind of pulled it up a little bit, just so I could get the fitting kind of in there straight and aligned, and then just kind of tapped it down with a rubber mallet. And since the seal that actually goes right here is rubber, we shouldn't really have any issues with it kind of conforming to the little bends and stuff. All right, so got the fuel filter installed right there. Got the 8N line running up to it. 6N is running up next to it, and basically I'm waiting on getting the engine back in the engine bay to kind of finalize the position of the fuel pressure regulator. So got the engine, got a lot of things back together on it. Got the intake manifold on it, wired the injectors. Cleaned up some of the automatic transmission wiring that was kind of dangling down in there. Mounted the dipstick tube with a little custom bracket I made right there. Got the lines and stuff for the fuel rail coming out of the front, and a couple other random little things that aren't super interesting, but definitely needed done. So now all there is to throw this thing back in the car, so that way we could finish mocking up all that other type of stuff. Carson, what do you want?
I want the yo-yo.
Oh, you want the yo-yo? Okay, I'll get it for you. She found this thing laying around the shop the other day. She really likes it.
Where's my mommy?
Mommy's right
It's one of
there.
those things where you like toss it and try to catch it.
Mommy's right there. But I just want to let you guys know I made a transmission mount. You guys probably seen it in the time lapse and was wondering what in the heck is happening. That's transmission mount. This is a stock like 350Z tranny mount, and then there's basically like a U-shaped thing with a hole going through it and a little rubber bushing. So I just basically whacked it off, stuck it up in there, used this plate, drilled some holes, and we're pretty good to go. I mean, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but that's Trevi's Customs. So Trevi's Customs is something that comes out when you want to spend 10 minutes on something instead of 10 hours. So if you ever hear me refer to Trevi's Customs, that's it. So this is a Trevi's Customs mount. So hopefully you guys are stoked about that. But yeah, the transmission or engine tranny's all back in. And I went to O'Reilly's earlier and I got me a bunch of hoses so we could try mocking up the radiator and doing all that type of stuff. And we also need to finish up the fuel lines. But I figured while I was under here, make this so this is officially mounted. We did go ahead and bolt in the drive shaft, got the shifter and everything in there. Drive shaft bolts in just perfect, which I'm pretty stoked about. Carson, what is that?
Yo-yo. Can I do it?
Yeah, you're on the spot now. Go
I
ahead.
can't do it. I'll hit her in the face.
It's all right.
No, I can't do it.
Ooh, almost.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
I
Maybe
could,
your daddy do it.
Maybe Daddy can do it.
maybe I can do it. You want me
Can
to try?
you do it, daddy?
Oh, should I see if I can try it? Oh, no. Tried trying it left-handed. Isn't a good idea too. All right, you try. No, see, kids, they don't need all the technology. They just need a freaking stick with a string and a ball. Yeah?
Gold.
Driver's Customs. All right, so now that the engine is back in the car, I went ahead and threw in the radiator. And so this is a Mustang GT radiator, and it's actually a triple pass. So it basically goes over, down, and then back down again. So it goes boop, boop, boop. So it's kind of like a Z. And so it actually gives the coolant a lot of time to actually cool versus it just kind of going in here and just kind of like moseying on over, kind of in finding its hot and cool spots and like path of least resistance, if so to speak. So the issue that we're having right now is JZ inlet is down here. And that's right there. So we need to basically opposite sides. And then right here, we need to get this to here. So I picked up some random hoses at O'Reilly's today to try and figure it out. This is another thing that needs to go here. This is where you feed it. There's a little nipple on here that needs to go to the side of the block over there. And then this is basically a vent from the top of the radiator right here. And then this needs to go to the engine to kind of like highest point to bleed off. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and cut this off. Finish like the fuel system and then just call that. Got this welded right there, so that's should be good to go. You can see that it got this little hose. This isn't the prettiest hose, so I'm probably gonna go to O'Reilly's tomorrow, see if we can find something else. It is a little bit bigger right here versus right there. There's a little bit of a size difference, but that should be all right. Normally they sell random hoses like that anyhow. I went ahead and, or Dave pulled these guys out of here. I welded that up right there on the bottom. And then I'm gonna put an AN fitting right here that actually goes to the coolant feed, so I don't have like the little, basically like this, where it's a hose to like a barb adapter. So I'll just do that right there. And then I actually tapped this other little hose right there for this fitting right here, which this is the cylinder head temperature sensor. So that's all on there. Got the radiator, the fan, basically figured out this low radiator hose. Got a little silicone 90 going to a piece of stainless going to another random hose I got from O'Reilly's today. And that kind of comes up around, goes over there, goes underneath the alternator, so I should be able to kind of strap it to the bracket or the subframe a little bit, keep it out of everything's way. And the other major thing I did is I actually got these fuel lines all made. So ADAN coming out of here, out of the fuel rail to the return 6 AN right there, going straight down, and then we have straight out of the fuel filter back there up to this ADAN right here, little 90. So basically ADAN feeds it, goes right here, regulates it, and then sends it back. So got a fuel pressure regulator on there, and got all the lines made. So that's kind of a big weight off my shoulders. Those things were kind of a pain, and now we could actually start plumbing stuff. So it's really exciting to actually have the engine just mounted in there. We also got transmission fluid in it. We bled the clutch, and that's probably the hardest clutch I've ever felt. It's just so stiff, and it's just like it's crazy how springy it is. So this is the whole charge harness slash electronic power steering harness. Goes to the starter, a ground to the engine, and some of this stuff works like the AC. But basically it's time to throw that in the car so that I can make sure that the coolant hoses and all that stuff don't affect it. And then yeah, just keep buttoning stuff up and keep finalizing it. So the goal before the end of the night is I want to get that harness in here. I want to hop in the car, push the clutch pedal, and actually start the car with the new fuel system. I'll have to load a different tune on the ECU, or basically just scale the injectors on the ECU master. But that is the goal for tonight, is to actually start it with the new fuel system. All right, I don't know if you guys are ready for this. I got the ECU and everything all plugged back in. A bunch of wires kind of laying around. So I have the crank position sensor. You can see this is the bracket that I actually mounted to the engine. So remember, I mounted it to the engine. I have the cylinder head temperature thing. The coolant temp one isn't working right now. I'm not sure why. I have it on the block over there. Maybe there's a different wire, or maybe, I mean, that thing might have like 3 coolant temp sensors or something on it. But so coolant temp's not working right now, but I did just start it. I got the base fuel pressure and everything all set. So excuse this whole mess. This is obviously just to test everything, make sure it all runs, make sure that you know, there's no leaks or whatever in the fuel system, make sure that the throttle works. There's no coolant in it right now. I did hook up the downpipe just so it kind of goes down, so it's not just kind of, you know, making a big old stinky mess in the engine bay, which, you know, it's still making it in the whole shop. But check this out. So we'll just hop in here. There we are. So coolant temp doesn't work. So we have voltage right there. So the battery's charging. Cylinder head temp, so 96, 97. So that's actually working. We have boosted vacuum, which it's, I don't think that's hooked up to anything. Air fuel ratio. So we have some gauges working. We have the shifter actually working. Oh, you know what we can do? We can actually push in the clutch. Alright, so the clutch is disengaged. So that the driver's side wheel is up off the ground, but so the reason this tire is off the ground because it's a different size wheel. It's an 18. The other one is a 20, so it's sitting on the ground. So the drive shaft works, the clutch works, the shifter works, the transmission works. We have a cylinder head temperature sensor that works. We have the air fuel ratio. I have it kind of hanging down there, basically right behind the exhaust, so it's kind of in the air. But when it was just sitting, it you know, when it wasn't plugged in, it was 14, but now it's plugged in, it's showing 20. Coolant temp isn't working, but obviously the crank position sensor for the EcoBoost, all that stuff is hooked up. It's reading RPM, it revs. The throttle cable, all that stuff works. So we have a throttle cable, we have fuel pressure, we almost have a radiator. Pretty much this whole radiator situation is really close. I just need to get a different line for that. And then, like I said, there's this little kind of nipple that goes right here that I'm basically going to tie into. Look, I'll show you this JZ. I'm going to go ahead and tie it into that thing right there. That basically goes around the back of the engine towards the heater core and all that stuff. So the other thing we need to do is hook up the heater core lines and all that stuff. So there's still a lot of stuff to be done. The other cool thing is that the factory fans are hooked up right now. So you can see that right there. If I can't get the coolant temp sensor to turn on and actually read, we're probably going to have an issue with that, because I was assuming that it would read coolant temp and then it would kick on the fans automatically based upon the predetermined you know, heat in the factory ECU. So we might have to figure out something for that. You know, maybe just tag in a wire from the ECU master, because I could program all that stuff in there. Maybe even run our own relay, but just maybe run it up in here to the factory relay box and get that to turn on those fans, because these are the Mustang GT fans and they are huge. I mean, those are some big dog fans, and they have the little vents and stuff in them too. So like when you're on the highway and they're not on, it'll let you know, it'll let stuff pass through. So we got to hook up the intercooler and all that other type of stuff. But I'm pretty stoked. We got a lot of stuff accomplished on this Mustang, and I'm just so stoked to actually be able to finally like button stuff up and just say, okay, it's on there. Let's get it all. Let's finish it, you know. So I appreciate every one of you guys watching, and I guess that's it. We're trying to make it to the dyno, so hopefully the next video you see is probably going to be pre-dyno, maybe first drive, and then the video after that should be dyno. And then right after that, we got to do a bunch of other stuff to the body on this thing. We have to go trailer shopping, a bunch of really cool stuff. So appreciate you guys watching, and see you guys later.